This is for Module 2, Lesson 1, learning how to multiply multi-digit whole numbers and multiples of 10 using distributive and associative properties. We're going to be using this grid to help us work through the problems. In the far left column, you're going to see the steps. Step 1 starts at the top, and you follow the rows down until you get to step 5. For the first line in the grid, you're going to write your problem. For our first example, we're going to use 4 times 30. The second step in our column is to rename, and by that I mean you want to rename the numbers that you have in your problem. Our first number is 4. We want to say how many discs in what column. In this case, we have 4 discs, and it is the ones column. So we're renaming 4 as 4 ones. Next, we're going to rename the next number, which is 3, and 3 is in the tens column. So we're going to say we have 3 tens. So to rename 4 times 30, we have 4 ones times 3 10. The next step is you want to rewrite in expanded form. So looking at this first one, expanded form, I like to draw my parentheses first. I have 2 numbers, so I'm going to have 2 sets of parentheses, and we're multiplying, so you have the multiplication symbol in the middle. For 4 ones, I'm going to write in expanded form 4 times 1. And then 3 tens in expanded form would be 3 times 10. You can check your answers and make sure 4 times 1 equals 4, which is the same as our top number here. And then 3 times 10 is 30, which is the same as our top number here. Here we want to reorder or regroup, and we can do this because of the associative, the commutative properties of multiplication. So what I want to do is I'm going to draw my parentheses again, just so I know what my problem is going to look like. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my first numbers from my parentheses, and that's going to go reordered into my first brackets. I want to write my 4 first, just so I can keep it in order. 4 times 3. So I've used both of those. Now for my next parentheses, I'm going to take the second number and reorder that. So basically you are putting together the discs in each place value column multiplied by the column that they're in. So you have 4 times 3 times 1 times 10. Finally, you want to solve your problem. 4 times 3 is 12, and you're multiplying that 12 by the other parentheses, 1 times 10, which is 1. Then you are multiplying 12 times 10, which when you're multiplying by multiples of 10, what you're doing is you're moving that decimal over, and you can think of it as just adding that 0 from the 10. Since there's 1 0 here, you just bring that 0 down and add it to the 12. In relating back to our decimal, if you're multiplying by 10, we're going to move that decimal over 1 here, and you add that 0. That's how it's connected to multiples of 10. Let's continue to work on these steps with similar problems and similar multiples of 10. This time we're going to work with 40 times 30. The first step is you want to rename. For 40, I have 4, and it is in the tens column, so I have 4 tens. Times 30, which is a 3 in the tens column, so 3 tens. The next step is to rewrite in expanded form. Since I have two numbers, I know I'm going to have two parentheses. I like to write those just so I can make sure that I'm getting all my numbers and keep it straight. So looking at my first number here, I'm going to bring down the 4, and I'm going to multiply that by 10 because it's 4 tens. Then for my second parentheses, I'm going to look at 3 tens, and I'm going to pull out those numbers in expanded form, which is 3 times 10 because it's 3 tens. And I can check here to make sure that I have the correct numbers by doing 4 times 10, which is 40, and 3 times 10, which is 30. Next, I want to reorder or regroup them. I'm going to start with my parentheses, so I make sure that I have everything. I'm going to pull out my whole numbers, 4 and 3, and put those in my first parenthesis. Then I'm going to pull out my multiples of 10, which is 10 times 10. Now I can solve. 4 times 3 is 12, just like our first problem. Multiplied by 10 times 10, which is 100. And again, thinking about moving those decimals on our whole number. When we multiply 12 times 100, so it would be our decimals here, it'd be 1, 2, and we fill those zeros in. The other way you can think about it is you take your number here and add the zeros. So 40 times 30 is 1,200. For our final column, using multi-digit whole numbers and multiples of 10, we're going to do 40 times 300. First, we want to rename. So 40, like previously, is 4 in the tens column. Times the 300, which would be renamed as 3, which is in the hundreds column, and I'm going to abbreviate hundreds, H-U-N-D. Next, I want to rewrite in expanded form. Since I have the two numbers, I'm going to make the two parentheses. Let's start with the 4 tens. I'm going to pull out that whole number, 4, and multiply it by the multiple of 10, which is 10. Then I'm going to multiply that by the next whole number, which is 300. So I'm going to pull out the 3. And I'm going to multiply that by 100, since it's 300. And again, here I can pause and check to make sure that I'm on the right track by saying 4 times 10 is 40, which matches my number up here. And 3 times 100 is 300, which matches my number here. Next, I'm going to reorder or regroup. And again, I can do this because of the associative and commutative properties. So I'm going to do 4 parentheses. Then I'm going to take my whole numbers and bring those down to my first parentheses. So I'll have 4 times 3. And then I'll take my multiples of 10 and multiply those together. So I'll have 10 times 100. Okay. Then I can solve. 4 times 3 is 12 times 10 times 100, which is 1,000. And I know it's 1,000 because when you're multiplying multiples of 10, you add your zeros onto each other. And since I have 1, 2, 3 zeros, 1, 2, 3 zeros down here. Then, using multiplying by multiples of 100, I move my decimal. So my decimal's here for my 12, and I'm going to add 3 bumps for 3 zeros. 1, 2, 3. So I would have 12, and I would fill in these empty spaces with my zeros. 1, 2, 3. The other way you can think about it is you have 3 zeros here, and you add them onto your first number. So I can say that 40 times 300 equals 12,000.